Hello, and welcome to Metachemistry. This is episode 120, and we're continuing our road to the Krug with another mission briefing episode, where we take an ITS mission, we break it down, talk about the types of units that might be most beneficial, talk about how you score and kind of the fundamentals of the mission itself, and try and go over some tips and tricks to give you the best fighting chance. And for this episode, we're going to talk about our last mission for the Krug, not necessarily in event order, but the last one we're going to talk about is Supremacy. Unmasking is also in the Krug 2025 lineup, but we did talk about that in an earlier episode, and it hasn't really changed much at all, so we'll leave that as is. Before we actually dive in, we do want to give a quick shout over to Mo Games, which is the sponsor of Metachemistry, and they're an online supplier of Infinity, which you can find at mo-games.com. So, as part of their sponsorship of the show, all of our paid patrons get a 10% discount code to Mo Games Store. And in addition, we raffle off a $40 coupon code to Mo Games every month for anyone who is a member of our Discord and has picked the Mo Giveaways role. So you can find that in our server role, and you just hit that button and you'll be entered to win every month. So in order to win that, you do need to have a United States mailing address for Mo to send it to, because Mo exclusively ships to the US. So just be a part of our Discord server, click that button, and you're in. Because what's better than games? Mo Games. And as always, it is Ian and myself tonight talking about Supremacy. But how have your hobbying and gaming endeavors been of late, Ian?
Well, it's actually had a few things going on
Ooh.
in gaming stuff, actually, not just horrific work life stuff. But first off, we got to do our next session of the Tales of the Black Widow Company for BattleTech from 1986, and it was a lot of fun. It's a campaign that a group of us run where I take on like the Op 4 and they take on like the heroes of the story kind of thing, and then we play it out, and it's from 1986, so it's not balanced at all, and it's just super narrative and like absolutely horrific. Like the last session was they're trying to carry off loot with their mechs, and the bad guys have sabotaged the loot and had bombs in the bags, and it's random rolls to see which mechs get hit, and then like the guy that had the least chance of getting hit got hit 4 times and basically didn't get to play the mission because it's the 80s and it's brutal. And then this one was the reverse. I walked into an ambush, started surrounded, and had to fight my way free. And did not do that well. So it's a historical game that happens to be set in the future.
Right. Yeah, I feel like that's pretty accurate from the very little that I know of BattleTech.
Yeah,
It seems like it's very much treated that way.
Yeah, so a lot of fun doing that. It's always, it's a game I've been playing for almost my entire life. So it's it's one of those things. It's awesome. Outside of that, apparently there's a Gundam card game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it like just came out like a couple days ago. And I'm not as super interested in the card game aspect, although I will play it with a couple people that have picked it up. I'm also not even that huge of a Gundam fan. I know, gasp. I'm speaking heresy here, but there's a miniatures game for Gundam coming out next year, and they have some starter sets for the card game that include minis for the minis game, and you guys use them as tokens for the card game for right now. And I was at, because I don't really care about or like Gundams that much, but you know what I do like? Zeon's Zaku's, because I just like the aesthetic.
Sure.
I was like, if you can get me that set, I'll play it. So that popped up. Models are actually really cool. It's got 3 of them. They're really cool, and they're all set starters. But then there's a random pack in there that has a single card that's an alternate art card for one of the cards in the set.
Okay.
And
Cool.
it's funny because Nate, he opened up like a whole bunch of these sets, and all he got was alternate art commons. And he hands me
Oh.
the one, and I open it, and I get like the alternate art legendary rare Char's Zaku 2 card, and he just looks at me. He's like, he want to punch me in the face. It was glorious.
Yeah.
But all I remember is when we were doing like Star Trek cards a while back, and we got some unopened boxes from back in the day, and I got nothing out of all of my boxes. Cool. And Mark sits there and opens up and gets 6 future Enterprise cards, which is the chase card of the whole set. And we're like, cool.
Sure.
So I'm like, it's my turn. It's my turn to get the cool thing.
Yeah. Only
So
fair.
yeah. And then outside of that, Warcrow is always still exciting. We are having tons of fun with that when we get to play it. Cavalry stuff has been coming out. Cavalry characters
Mm-hmm.
are now coming out, and that's cool. And now we're getting the full faction release of the Scions and the Feudum coming at Gen Con in their 2-player starter box, which is really cool. So now that the Scions will be moving out of the beta rules that they had from the
So
Adventures
excited for
game.
that.
Yep. So looking forward to that a lot. Obviously, we're getting some new Infinity tags and stuff, like the resculpt
Mm-hmm.
Yodam and Iguana, which
Iguana.
both of which are amongst my favorite of the tags. So like,
I
it's
mean,
pretty cool.
you were gonna get him anyway,
I know I was
but
gonna
that
get them
doesn't hurt.
anyway, but like I've been a proponent of the Iguana from like the
Mm-hmm.
get. Like
Sure,
is
that's
one
true.
of the coolest tags. It's one of the most useful ones in my opinion. So Gen Con release for Infinity and Warcrow, I'm super excited about both of those. So yeah, we got
Yeah.
lots going on.
Yeah, because of after playing a little bit with the Warcrow Adventures rules, I've kind of set down Warcrow for the moment, is knowing that Scions were going to get a full release at Gen Con, at least since we've learned that. Like, yeah, this isn't really working for me as is. So I'm pretty excited for that. We've seen the cards for everything now, as far as I can think of.
The stuff
And
that's in
so,
the starter anyway.
right, exactly. Yeah, so stuff that's in the box, in the Beyond box. So yeah, so I'm excited to pick that up and start playing Warcrow in earnest. And speaking of, we'd like to know what you think about Warcrow. Sure, just kind of in general, but also, are you interested in Warcrow content from us? Is that something you'd like us to cover? And if so, in what capacity would you find most interesting? Would you want it to be more lore focused or news focused or competitive focused or whatever the case may be? We'd love to know, because if there is an audience for that, we'd be happy to start talking about that more once we get a little bit more experience with the game.
Mhm.
Yeah, and for me, I've decided I'm gonna stop jumping around for a little bit, for like
Also, you're
a
gonna
month
play
or
one of the
so.
3 factions that you own.
3 factions. I have way more than 3 factions.
You
I
have
just
Nomads, and
carry
you have
3,
Aleph, and you have O12.
and I have combined, and
Oh, okay. I
I
haven't seen those in a
have.
while.
That's true. I haven't brought them out in a while, but I have all three. I have all three sectorials and stuff for vanilla for combined. I have my Rama. Uh,
I
I
haven't seen
have
those in a while
Kestrel.
either. Okay,
I
yeah,
know.
that Kestrel's new.
Yeah, the Kestrel slash and the NCA that I had. So I have stuff. Oh, you're gonna enjoy this, Ian. I bought some Ariadna.
Yes, it's happening. What'd you get?
so I picked up the TAC Action Pack,
Okay,
and I got the Dog Warriors pack and an Irmandinho, because there was a friend out in the Northeast Super Duper Meta who was selling the Action Pack and Irmandinho, so I got those models for like $35.
okay,
So I'm like, I could start that way, I guess. So
yeah.
I don't know when I'm going to play them, but it seemed
But they're
worthwhile
there.
enough to
They're gonna be
see.
looking at you. It'll happen.
I'll close the box lid. I will not feel shame.
You'll know they're there.
That's true. So yeah, otherwise, I am going to stick with OSS for a little while, at least through the Krug, because I just needed to lock in something and at least pretend like I'm trying to practice for this event. I'm not, but I'm pretending that I am. I don't
I'm
have
really
particularly
not.
high hopes. Right? Yeah. I mean, you don't have a reason to at this point.
Yeah.
But
What I'm practicing is my best customer service voice.
there you go.
I'm sorry, but that's not going to be an appropriate way to interact with your opponent. And nope, that is indeed not the actual line of fire. There it is going to be ruled this way.
We regret to inform you that that is in fact not partial cover.
Yes.
Yeah, because Ian is going to be one of the TOs at the Krug, so he is going to be helping facilitate during the event. So I am taking up the easy part, and I'm just going to play. So yeah, so I've been playing some OSS.
My official title will be Table Wrangler.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, all the terrain setup.
Yeah.
I mean, not every table, but
No, but
making
like
sure things are in order.
organizing where it goes and all that kind of stuff, and making sure things get set up in a timely fashion. 'Cause I've done that a few times for Krug. This will just be a more official version.
Right. Yeah, and with this being such a big event, the event double capped at 120 players. We have basically, almost all of the best players in the US and some international players that are making it out. It's one of those things where I don't anticipate myself having an exceptionally strong showing. But I think it's going to be a great time. I'm really excited to see how this goes because it looks like things are really well set up and that it's going to be a great time for everyone.
The
So,
venue is
for those of you going,
fantastic.
yeah, it sounds really cool. I know you've been there. I have not, but
Yeah. The Curtis Hotel in downtown Denver. It's super nice. They have like themed floors and like suites and stuff. So when I got married, we stayed there, and that's kind of the staging point for a lot of the stuff to get out to the wedding venue and things. And so they have like a sci-fi floor, and has all kinds of different things, like there's Star Wars paintings on the walls and stuff. And we stayed
yeah,
specifically in the Star Trek suite. And so
nice.
they had like the old school like 60s communicators and like pictures of all of the old action figures and stuff. So it's a very nerdy venue. They have
Yeah,
a comic book floor. They have like a Barbie floor. There's a board game floor. Like there's all kinds of stuff. It's super cool. So I'm excited for people to come out and kind of and stay there and get to do stuff around in that area, because it's just probably one of the coolest venues that an event could be held at.
yeah, it seems really sweet. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. I'm excited to show up. And for any of our listeners that are attending the Krug, please make sure and say hi. And we can put faces to names and hang out. I think that'll be a good time. And we should be easy to recognize because I plan to have some cool Metacam shirts ready for Ian and I.
Yay.
Yeah. Fingers crossed on that one. So, all of that to start Supremacy. Supremacy is kind of a semi-straightforward mission, all told. It's, quadrant control with consoles. But Ian, why don't you break down the objectives of the mission just so we kind of have that baseline?
Yep. So, like Devin said, this is a variation on quadrant control. So at the end of each game round, you need to dominate more quadrants than your opponent for 2 objective points each round. And then at the end of each round, if you dominate the same number of quadrants, it's 1 point. And then at the end of the game, if you have hacked a console, that's 1 point, up to 3 points maximum, because there are 4 consoles, 1 in each quadrant. There's additionally 1 classified objective worth 1 point. Outside of that, there is no tactical support, so this did not get anything fancy in this season.
Yeah. Which I think is good. I feel like
Yeah.
this is a solid it's a solid mission, and it's one of those that's fairly easy to introduce to newer players and get a feel for something that is a little bit more dynamic than some missions. Especially, having end of round scoring really forces you to be on top of taking quadrants and things like that, which I think is definitely good for the pacing of the game and kind of forces you to think ahead a little bit. But yeah, this is your standard 12-inch deployment zone. There's notably no exclusion zone or similar. And as far as quadrants work, or all zone of operations missions work, you have to be a real trooper in the zone, and if more than half of your base is in the zone, then that's the zone you are contesting. You can be a marker though, which is pretty
Yes.
notable. So camo can be really potent in this mission, especially if you have some sort of advanced deployment. You can already start covering those zones before the game even begins.
Yeah. Infiltrators prone on top of buildings in camo state are wonderful.
Yeah,
They may
makes it a
not
little
have orders
tricky,
spent on them during the whole game, and they did their
right?
job.
Exactly. So, as per usual, troops with baggage, if they're in a zone, they count as an extra 20 points beyond what they would normally count as. Shizvasti troops in the seed embryo state, so the Shizvasti unconscious state, they still count as points. So, Shizvasti are actually really good for this kind of mission for
Hmm.
both of the reasons we just mentioned. Then the consoles. So, there's one console in the center of each quadrant, and the quadrants are just the 24-inch band between each deployment zone. Specialists can interact with those consoles. If you hack it successfully, you control it, and by hack console, I generally mean have a specialist interact with it. It doesn't have to be a hacker, though it does have a hacker bonus this mission. And then, as long as you were the last person to flip that console, you're the one who is controlling it or who has activated it. Once your opponent activates it, you no longer have activated it. So whoever touches it last gets the points for it at the end of the game. And as I said, the hacker bonus, it gives you an additional 3 to your whip and an extra burst. So you have a really good chance of snagging these if you're using a hacker to do so. Then there's QAZ creatures. These have been around for the whole season, so not a whole lot to say on these guys. Just that you drop down these little quantum anomaly zone creatures, and they bite only your opponent because that's how they work. So they do their usual guard inside a zone of control without line of fire with low CC, but it is at 11, but burst 3. And yeah, notably, I don't think they ever changed the AP weapon on QAZ creatures.
They
So I'm
did
pretty
not.
sure it's PS8 because weapon CC weapons are default 8 unless
Yeah,
mentioned otherwise.
that's PS8, but it's AP.
It is AP. But yeah, PS8 is not crazy. That is
Mhm.
I mean, I guess it would only be one better if it was based off its fizz compared to last edition, but you know. And then the final wrinkle of the mission is Intelcom provisions. So this one is where a certain label of classified objective gives you an extra point. So in Supremacy, if you get a classified objective that has the wireframe globe, then that gives you 1 extra point as long as that wouldn't put you above 10 points already. So you can't ever go over 10.
Which classifieds have that symbol? There's mapping, which needs a forward observer or hacker to designate, or the designator must be in silhouette contact with a piece of scenery that is totally inside the enemy's deployment zone. Summon a sword skill and make a successful whip roll. That'll get you an extra point in this mission. Telemetry, which is a forward observer or spotlight hacking program that makes a successful forward observer spotlight roll against an enemy trooper. That's an extra point. HVT designation, also forward observer or
Mhm.
spotlight hacker. but just 2 successful rolls against an HVT model. Extra point. HVT espionage, which needs a hacker. You must have an enemy HVT inside your zone of control. Spend a short skill and make a whip roll with a -3 mod for an extra point. Or data scan, also hacker. It's very hacker heavy on this.
Or Ford
Hacker
Observer.
must.
Yeah.
Well, 2 of these are hacker specific.
Right. But the other
Yep.
ones are, I mean, there's
Yep.
no Ford Observer specific ones because it's
That's
really
fair.
about inflicting the targeted state, I guess.
Yep. And then this is for data scan. A hacker must spend 1 short skill of an order and make a successful whip roll against an enemy trooper inside their zone of control. But it's a comms attack, so it can be reset against. So if you have one of those, you can get an extra point if you complete it.
Yeah, and so basically any of the ones that like kind of because these icons are generally kind of lore or theme centric. So these are for okay, you're scanning or gaining intelligence some way, generally speaking. That gets you this little wireframe globe, the kind of like scanning symbol,
Mhm.
and that's worth an extra point. Which is kind of notable because that means that you know there's more incentive to take those cards, but also that, say, provisioning incentivizes forward observers. This mission incentivizes hackers, and unmasking incentivizes hackers. And so that kind of starts to inform list building a little bit, looking at the whole lineup,
Yep.
that these are things that might be handy. So that kind of gives us our overall framework looking at supremacy. And so, kind of the things that stand out, of course, are you need to be able to put points in zones, and you have to be proactive about doing so, generally speaking, because this is scored at the end of every round. And then otherwise, you want to get the consoles, but it's not something you have to be doing right away because that scores at the end of the game. But it can kind of put some mental pressure on your opponent if you are snagging a handful of these in round 1 or round 2 potentially, where it can really start to weigh on your opponent. Like, oh, I'm really gonna need to start getting these consoles. So and so's got 2 or
Mm-hmm.
3 already. And if you have the orders and can spare, it's a good use of activations.
Yeah, just grab them on your way to the quadrants on your opponent's half of the board.
Yeah. So with that said, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit already, but what sorts of tools or units or abilities are you looking for when this mission comes up? What do you find most helpful?
So I like going one of 2 different directions. Either it's run a list with a bunch of really durable, expensive stuff like tags, heavy infantry, things like that, that you can park into one of the
Mhm.
quadrants and that are a little harder to take off. That
Sure.
said, you putting all your eggs in one basket per se with doing that. So the other route is to go with a whole lot of a little bit cheaper guys that you can kind of flood into a quadrant, and where you can afford to maybe lose 1 or 2 of them and still have points in the zone.
Sure.
So you gotta kind of decide, which one is going to be more beneficial with your faction, with the other missions in the lineup that you're looking to build for. With this being so hacker centric, and some of the other missions at the Krug being so hacker centric, that kind of informs a little bit there. Where for me, I would maybe think more about doing infiltrating camo hackers,
Sure. Yeah.
because they're already there. They can be in camo. Make that ups their survivability, especially if you can hide them someplace. They can grab the objectives. They're great. Other things that are super useful: airborne deployment,
Sure. Yeah.
because with everything scoring end of round or end of game, there's nothing quite like being able to drop something in last turn, especially if you're going second, and drop points into a zone, or be able to grab that one of those consoles right off the bat. I know personally that one of the times I did this, I was playing 012 and dropped the Knight Santiago hacker right onto the board. Just
Yep.
went, cool. Here, here's like 40 points or whatever it is, and just
Yep.
boop. And opponent couldn't do anything about it because I dropped them in an area where they couldn't be seen, so no arrows. And I just completely flipped that entire quadrant, just like nothing.
Yeah.
Even better if they have parachutists and they can walk on without getting shot, because then it's a guarantee.
Right. Yeah, because you can get into any zone you want with parachutists.
Yep.
That's the real determining factor is, can you do it without arrows coming at you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that those are definitely some good shouts. I think that, as we established, like infiltrating units, and particularly units in camo or even just forward deployment, honestly, are going to be really potent, because marker state troops, of course, have that extra layer of durability, or I suppose method of draining opponents' orders, and so they're just less appealing targets to dig out by and large, and they can start in zones. You don't necessarily need to activate them if they're just kind of sitting, especially I think of like cheaper camo units that just forward deploy and are in your zone. It's not very likely that your opponent is going to dig those out immediately, and so you can kind of focus your efforts on the enemy zones instead of your zones. Because there are plenty of times where, like, oh yeah, I forgot to move somebody out of my DZ into my, one side zone on my half. I should have done that.
They're already there, though.
You can't forget. Bane of my existence. But yeah, otherwise, points dense units, I think, are really potent. Like, tags are very potent in this mission, because they're generally going to be good at removing opponents' threats. And you move a tag in a zone, and almost always you own that zone. Like, they're going to most tags are going to outpoint generally what is in a zone, especially if you're keeping them kind of on your half the table, but they're fast enough. And depending on how well they're protected or how much your opponent's diminished, they can stomp over to your opponent's side of the table and go and suppressive fire or similar and be a real headache. Because even if you are isolated or immobilized or whatever the case may be, you still count as points in the zone.
Oh, yeah.
So they have to actually drop you. The exception to that is possessed, which is one of my favorite things to do. Then it counts for no one. You don't get the points for the enemy tag being in the zone, but they don't count as any points for anyone.
Because possessed is a null state.
Exactly. So it's a good way to just say, you don't count for points. Also a good way to move enemy tags out of zones. if you have the orders to spare. But high mobility is really useful, and so tags are obviously very fast. 80 troops, like Ian mentioned, yeah, motorcycles are solid for this sort of thing.
The vehicles, the flyers, they'll be solid.
Yep, they still count as in the zones. It can be a little tricky for them to find places to hide. I find that most vehicles don't tend to hold up an arrow exceptionally well, but they can get away with it. But it's maybe, I guess the red eye could. The red eye's tough enough that,
but going second and just doing that last turn of the game push and just throwing them up into zones and real quick and dominating them.
Yeah, here's 30, 40 points ish in a zone, kind of on command.
Yeah, this is also the thing, like mentioning tags, like put the Magariba Guard in there and then put it in suppressive. There's nowhere they can come at it from unless they can get a repeater near it.
Right? Yeah.
That's
so
got
glad
baggage.
360 visor. Yeah, and then it has baggage. So yeah,
so it's baggage. It's got the 360 visor. It's just it's
so it counts for what, over 100. Yeah, it's over 100 points with baggage, right?
I believe so.
I want to say the fun profile with the mine dispenser, I want to say, is in the low 80s, or did it go below that in N5?
Let's see. So yeah, the profiles are down to 71 and 72 points.
Oh, okay. All
But
right. So
still,
still over 90.
91,
That's
92 points. That's
yeah. I mean,
not bad.
that's
Because
like the
there's not a
top end of tags anymore.
whole lot of tags that are hitting those numbers natively anymore.
Yeah, I think it's probably the cutter, the Marut, the Avatar, the Sphinx maybe are like
Yeah.
all close to that and maybe over. I know the Marut's over offhand, and I'm pretty sure the Avatar is. I don't
Yeah.
remember 100% where the cutter's at.
The cutter's pretty high. It's
Yeah, I want to say it's in the
n-
mid
n-
or upper
n-
90s.
yeah, it is 95 or 97.
Gotcha. There we go. So, yeah, I mean, this will outpoint on its own everything but the most expensive tags in the game, which is pretty potent.
Yeah.
But yeah, that also brings up a good point, kind of in general, is baggage units that do something are pretty cool. Most factions don't get such things. The Magariba is the only human example I can think of.
Mhm.
Otherwise, the ones that come to mind are all alien units. So you have the Icadrons, which have flamethrowers and flash pulses, and are size 2. And there's the Choxa Auxiliars, which typically, you're taking they're the 10-point heavy flamethrower
Yeah.
versions. And so those are great ways to inflate your points in zones with troops that have some sort of benefit. Like, yes, you could move your baggage pot into one of those zones, but with their
Mhm.
uh, average speed and their large base, it's
Yeah.
just usually not worth the orders unless that's going to clinch you the zone at the bottom of the round or something.
Or you could play tack and just take 4 tractor mules.
Yeah. It's like,
You're
here
like,
we
just
go.
keep throwing them. They're cheap enough. Just keep throwing them in.
Right. But yeah, generally the things that stand out to me kind of in summation are things that deploy up the field or are fast, and things that have some form of extra durability, like marker states or multiple wounds and good armor and things like that. Like things that can hold up to an active attacker and not just keel over in an order. Those are some of my favorite. Like Max comes to mind. I feel like he's pretty good for something like this.
Yeah. He's pretty good in general.
Yeah, it's true. He's chunky enough that he is really, really, really hard to move. Like it can be done, but you have to do so much damage quickly without relying on ammo types. Other than, I mean, I guess Breaker is probably your best bet
Mhm.
as far as ammo type goes. I don't think, or I mean, because EM doesn't help you as
No.
far as outpointing, and viral
Mhm.
doesn't work.
Mhm.
Because the thing is that if you manage to destroy the 3 structure off the tag, then he becomes an eclipse zone with a specialist, and he's still counting as his full points in the zone. And then you have to come fight him, or spec fire or intuitive attack, I guess,
Yeah. Also, if you want to play the baggage game in this, you want to play
Mhm.
Dashot,
because they have tractor mills and what else?
Camille's, and the Maggie.
Okay, yeah, yeah. All right, so
So
there's a
they
lot
have
of
available
baggage.
total of 5. They can take 5 different things with baggage. So for 97 points, they can put 197 points in zones.
That is something you can do.
Yes.
I
I'm
don't
not
know
saying
if
it's
that's
good.
worth it,
Honestly,
but
I
it's
mean
funny.
that's you got 203 points left to spare to build the rest of the list, and you have. I mean, I don't know. That doesn't seem terrible.
Yeah, I mean, a good chunk of that's the margarita. So,
Yeah, but I'm all like let's normalize the skew list because it's entertaining.
how does that work? Isn't a skew list inherently not normal?
Oh yeah, the list
Otherwise,
isn't
it wouldn't be
normal,
a
but
skew.
let's make having skew lists normalized.
Mm, I see. I see.
So if everybody runs one, they're all different skew. Whatever everybody
Different
wants
SKUs.
one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm here for
Perfect.
this. Like my 14 motorcycle US Ariadne list. Or
Yeah,
was it
that'll get in
13?
zones quick.
Yeah, it was 13. It was 13 motorcycles, 6 Mavericks, 5 Mavericks, 6 Desperados, and 2 Doctors on bike. It was
Yeah,
fantastic.
that is a lot.
And
There's a
everything has
lot
smoke.
of has a lot of base size to cover the board
Yes.
with.
Yes. It was also fun because I played it in Biotech 4 with the 8-inch deployment zone.
Oh, yeah. So you just line them up around terrain, however that happens to work.
Yep. Yep.
Like
And
you
then
can't put them anywhere. So
it was figure out which one can't be shot right off the bat and use that one to launch smoke and then just chain it down the line, covering smoke for everybody else as you move things up.
yeah, I mean that would do it.
It was fun.
Yeah, seems kind of neat. I don't know if I'd want to play with that many bikes,
It was an
but I guess I don't
experiment.
really, for sure. So yeah, and then fire teams are obviously going to be very useful in Supremacy and actually Biotech 4. Not that that's what we're talking about, but in Supremacy, because that is a way you kind of gain speed through that order efficiency, even if they're just 4 models. The fact that you're moving several of them at a time, of course, gives you an advantage over someone who is not doing that.
It's one of the ways you could beat a tag in a zone if you get a whole fire team in there.
Right, yeah, if you get a like a medium infantry fire team, even some light infantry fire teams, like not your baseline troop fire teams usually for most tags, but some medium infantry, or if you spread out a heavy infantry corps or something like that, that this is a place where that could work.
Mhm.
So yeah, so that again, another way to get maneuverability and sort of a way to gain durability, but not exactly in terms of having additional troops there that can cover each other and whatnot. But yeah, so now that we kind of have an idea of the things that we'll want to look for, and there's some variation of this that every faction can kind of do to some degree or another,
Mhm.
depending on if you want to go more towards markers or more towards heavier, more durable units, or whichever the case may be, or speedy units. So now that we kind of have an idea of what we're looking for, very generally speaking, what are you looking for in terms of initiative? Let's say you win the initiative roll. Are you picking initiative or are you picking deployment?
Well, obviously, it's going to depend on a lot of factors. Um, I have played this game or this particular mission in a tournament at a Krug, actually, where the terrain on the table I was on was very lopsided, and I chose
Oh yeah,
deployment because I was playing um,
you're playing Josh, right?
Meravin. No, no, no. I was playing one of the New Mexico guys,
Oh, okay,
and it was my Merovingians versus his combined army, and he had an avatar. And
that's
I
right. And it was
don't.
one of the walkways,
Yeah, it was one of the
the
walkway
high
like
walkways. Yeah,
towers with walkways, and there was a tower in one deployment zone that had a walkway to towers out into like the zones, and I was able to just put a fire team up there prone and shimmy him along, and the avatar stomped around on the ground floor, uh, dealing with camo markers,
immediately.
and then I walked like Margot and Duroc into areas and took the whole game
Yeah,
because the terrain facilitated that. The
sure,
terrain was lopsided enough that it was no, I can't deal with the avatar because there just really wasn't anything in Merovingia that could really deal with it
sure.
successfully. So I avoided it, and the terrain allowed me to because that's why I picked deployment on that one. Um, I know the answer here is because it scores end of round. The answer here is very much go second. I know that's the answer. I'm still going first most times because I'm stubborn and I like going first. But realistically, the answer, barring a terrain issue, would probably be to take initiative and go second.
Yeah, I'm generally in the camp of if I'm winning, I'm probably choosing deployment
Hmm.
because there is the majority of the time, not always, because I mean, part of it is that one experienced players know this mm, uh, trick, if you want to call it that, where if I'm picking deployment and I'm making you deploy first, you are pretty strongly disincentivized to let
Yeah.
me also take first turn because you're taking the penalty or the negative or however you want to look at it of both initiative and deployment, and
Hmm.
most players don't want to do that. And so that's a way that many times you'll get second turn that way because they might feel forced or
Yeah.
otherwise to take first turn, and then you can kind of get bottom of the round, and then scoring is much more weighted to your actions.
Because nobody wants to get counter deployed and then shot right away.
Yeah, double handicap, it can be kind of rough. And that's not always the case, and especially if they are a strong enough opponent and they're a really solid player, I definitely know that some people will still pick second and just deal with it and be just fine in some cases.
Mhm.
But that is one way to kind of suss out second turn without taking because otherwise you are taking both penalties. Like if you said,
Yeah.
if you win the initiative roll, okay, cool, I'm picking initiative, I'm going second, then of course your opponent's going to make you deploy first and you're kind
Every
of in
time.
that boat. So that's generally how I like to approach it. One, because like, if they if my opponent is willing to have me go first anyway, then all right, then we take a much more aggressive approach, and you don't get the benefit of reacting to what is in zones at the bottom of round,
Mhm.
but you still get the general first turn advantage of being able to remove choice models, without your opponent's reprisal. So there's still benefit there, and depending on how aggressive and how durable your units are, it might not matter a whole lot. You could potentially still get in positions where, okay, well, I've crippled enough of your forces that you can't quite push me off. On being aggressive, though, it's important to note that this is a mission that ends in retreat. And so, a really easy way to lock yourself out of points is killing too much stuff because you don't play to your full 3 rounds. And so, you miss, uh, say at least 2 points for the third round. But also, if you're being that aggressive, how many consoles were you flipping in that time? So, you could be giving up a lot of points. So,
Yeah.
that's something to be very mindful of, is that you have to be careful about how hard you strike if you are running a list that is capable of digging out opponents and really inflicting a lot of damage early in the game, because you might just lock yourself out of a bunch of points. Not that, I would have any experience with that. It's not really me. It's not my
I
place.
do.
No, it's true. I have definitely done that sometimes. I don't tend to be as aggressive as a
Yeah.
player most often, but it definitely happens sometimes.
Yeah. And my Cosmo list was the majority of major tournament games I played with that list. I was tabling my opponent second turn.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, granted, those were missions where I wasn't losing points for that, but it
Sure.
very easily, like, if it was a mission like this or something that ends in retreat that is scored on round, then yes, I could have locked myself out of a lot of points.
Yeah. And so I think that Supremacy can be kind of an aggressive mission because one of the best ways to outpoint your opponent in zones is to make sure that they are not alive in zones to contest.
Hmm.
And it has a fairly light specialist requirement. Like you do have one classified, but also, you know, a couple specialists are typically going to be more than enough unless somebody's actively targeting them to get these consoles. And again,
Yeah.
you don't need to get all the consoles.
No, you only need to get 3.
Yeah. Yeah, 3 will get you max points.
Or
4 is if you wanna
2,
show off.
2 and, get the globe classifieds.
There you go.
Yeah, just make
Bring
it
your
up
hackers.
with that.
Yeah. So, with some of those things in mind, um, things you can do to kinda stymie your opponent, I it's worthwhile to have things like mine layers are great for area denial. Uh, so whether that be actual camouflaged mines or crazy koalas or mad traps or whatever the case may be, those are really good options to kind of slow down your opponent and kind of keep them away from zones, especially if these are infiltrating mine layers, because then you can be
Mhm.
placing things at the halfway point and start making it difficult for them to enter your half of the table. And then all you need to worry about if you happen to be going second is you can then just scoot some things into one of your opponent's zones, take up those 3 zones, and then get the majority scoring for the round. Otherwise, it's definitely a mission where having good hard arrows is also going to be a benefit, of course. But as always, those are things you have to be kind of selective with because hard arrows don't always last very long.
Yep.
They're good at slowing things down, but usually with enough effort, they'll get killed off. Even if you are a linked black air sniper or Hawkwood or Phoenix or whatever the case may be. But yeah, Ian, any other kind of quick little tips in terms of trying to keep your opponent out of zones or away from
Uh,
consoles?
yeah, I mean, repeater networks help if they're running something that's hackable, which if
Hmm.
they're running hackers to try to get the bonus there, then that's very helpful. So I like a good repeater network. Um, Obviously, we talk about deployable weapons, mine layers, crazy koalas, things like that. Turrets, that's another
Yep.
good one. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it and a lot of ways to build for it. Just kind of some of it depends on what your opponent brings. It's whether or not they're going to have answers for some of that. Because
Yep.
you brought hackers and repeaters, and then you get matched up against Ariadna, and there's very little that's hackable.
Right.
So
Yep. True. You bring a double Shujai with mine layer 2 EM mines and go into Marats.
yeah, I mean, you could still immobilize a few things,
A few things. That's true.
like tags. You can immobilize those.
It's true. They will be immobilized, but it's not hard. It's not terribly hard for them to get out of it.
Yeah, because that's only a -3.
Yeah. So, yeah, with that, I think we're just about ready to transition to final thoughts. But I do want to give a quick shout out to our supporters on Patreon. So, thank you all so very much for continuing to support the show. It really means a lot to Ian and I, and it helps ease the strain on us financially. We don't get paid by doing the show, but this kind of helps keep up with regular running costs of keeping the show going. So, thank you so much for that. And if you're interested and willing to sign up, you can find us on patreon.com/metachemistry. And you can find a couple levels with different benefits there. So in return, we try and give you some cool benefits like early access to episodes, final voting on polls, private areas on our otherwise free Discord, and things like that. And we're always looking for new ideas. So if you are or are interested in being a patron and you think of some cool benefits, let us know. We'll see if that's something that we can manage. And as far as our Discord, that is, like I said, a free and open community other than a couple private channels. And we'd love to have you there talking more Infinity. So you can come meet with us and say hi and pick our brains on things, or get to know us or whatever the case may be there, as well as see all kinds of sweet paint jobs and tables and people talking about new releases and list building and all that good stuff. And we're working to improve that all the time. So, again, we would love to have your feedback if you are already on that Discord and want to see us make some changes. We'll see what we can do there. Yeah. With that said, Ian, final thoughts on Supremacy?
Yeah, it's a good mission. It's been in just about every ITS season I can remember.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's like supplies. It's very much that simple mission in concept that is easy to throw into a lineup that everybody
Mhm.
kind of gets. It's a little bit of a break from some of the more mentally taxing missions like
Mhm.
unmasking and pong that have a little bit more going on. So
Right.
sprinkle these around that to give everybody a little chance to mentally reset going into something else. But yeah, it's a great
For
mission.
sure.
The quadrant control and supremacy, they they're kind of a cornerstone of the whole ITS. You're liable to see one of those come up pretty frequently, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I like the mission. It's a lot of fun. I like this one a little bit more than quadrant control because I like the little
Sure.
bit the additional objectives on it. So
I agree.
yeah.
Yeah. It's just another layer to say, hey, have some specialists do these things.
Mhm.
So yeah, I agree. It is kind of a near foundational mission, both in terms of kind of player onboarding and in terms of tenure in ITS. And yeah, it's a solid mission for a reason, and I do enjoy playing it. It is definitely something where, again, you want to keep in mind how you defend, how maneuverable you are, and one thing that's kind of interesting is that this is a mission like any ground control mission. It really rewards player knowledge. So, knowledge of points, which are normally, I mean, which are private information, you can't just ask your opponent how many points something is. Uh, it can be a little bit trickier for newer players or even intermediate players because of that. So it's hard to say, oh, well, just read up on all the profiles in the game. Obviously that's not feasible. And that's something that's just kind of accumulated over time. But it would be worthwhile to kind of see about getting ballparks like, oh, that's a light infantry. It's probably um, especially if it's like somebody says like, "Oh, this is a line troop." I'm like, all right, well, that's probably between 10 and 15 points depending on the line troop, and that's a basic heavy infantry. That's probably between 25 and 35 points depending on the gun, and things like that. So having some sort of basic heuristic like that to guesstimate approximate points will help a lot, even if you don't necessarily know how much a given unit costs. That can be used to kind of help alleviate that, at least somewhat. Because for new players, especially, you're just not going to have mostly any idea other than bigger model is more points, probably. But yeah, so going over some things like that, I think can help. But otherwise, yeah, make sure that you can move across the board quickly and don't die once you're there.
Mhm.
That's the easiest part of Infinity, right? You just don't die. It's great.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. Well, on behalf of Metachemistry, and with that wildly sage advice there, uh, this has been Devin.
And Ian. And that's the meta.